it's just a word, you know, say innate intelligence. Okay, yes, you know, there's physiological intelligence, there's physiological immune system. We know there's an amazing intelligence, but what is so unique about unified therapy is that we found this doorway into ourselves, you know, that transcends any other previous doorway to get in there. Because in mental health, you know, what came out of psychotherapy and all that was ways to get into the unconscious. Sigmund, you know, Freud, the first thing was to realize, wait a minute, we are not who we are, that there's really this unconscious part that may be running the show a lot more than we realize. If we can get into that, we can help people. But we're saying, we're going way beyond that, because in psychotherapy they developed, or in mental health, they developed many different techniques to try to get into that. You know? You may do EMDR, you may do dream analysis, you may different ways, but the unified thing, it's like you don't have to basically ask the questions, you don't have to figure it out, you open the doorway, they will tell you what's going on, they will tell you, they will access parts of their brain, they will access information they never ever knew. And when they get that information, they also get an incredible sense of lightness, joy, bliss. They have many people have never experienced any compassion, never experienced love. How are you going to know love if your father and mother never gave it to you? Now, you don't have to physically abuse a person. They may have, you know, never been touched, never been held. What we see about the ACE studies, these people tend to keep the cycle going. So it's like, they're going to have more trauma. If they were raped, there's a huge chance that they're going to get somebody to do it again. If they had car accidents, there's a huge chance they're going to, and you're like, unbelievable. If they've had pain in the shoulder, they're going to have pain in the back. If they have pain in the back, if you look at the emergency room visits, it should go off as a red flag, which is incidental. We're trying to teach physicians all over. When you see a history of multiple sort of not really clear explanations for those visits, you can almost count on there's unprocessed stress and trauma. And those words don't really even describe. When you say trauma, it's vague. You know, people overly use that word, but there's something in the human dynamic that has stopped it from growing and evolving. And then once that door opens, anything can happen. For instance, we had a patient, he's a military, worked at the Coast Guard. And, you know, originally came in for a physical pain, you know. And I think it's probably the second or third visit, and my associate came over, she says, Dr. Paul, look at this man, the way he's moving, because literally she saw his spine moving in different ways and sort of waves going through it. And isn't seeing that she hasn't seen a lot of amazing and unusual things, but particularly when that type of wave, literally the spine itself starts to move into its individual sections, and the person will often do even advanced what we call yoga postures without any knowledge, right? So, wow, so she's going, wow, that's amazing. I said, that's great, that's good, look at and doing that, but you want him to be mindful, because people can go and these things that happen and they're not in their body. That's right. So we want them to be present. That's the old way, because people say, oh man, I had this healing and I moved this and I did this breath work. But there's no net long-term change. They're still there. I had this amazing wake up, right? I saw God, I felt this, I did this. There's no big change because they're not home. The brain is still not connected. But get this, so then he comes and he says, Dr. Paul, Barbara, I got to share this story with you. You know, I was driving back from the base, which is in Key West, with the Coast Guard, and he was driving up the highway. And all of a sudden, I felt this overwhelming feeling of emotion happening. And now normally, as most people do, they will start texting somebody and even put their own life in danger rather than go to feel that, right? Or call somebody on the phone, or turn the station, because this, well, obviously it's the station, it's the music that's making it, but he had enough aware of mind plus going through the process to say, you know what, I'm going to go with this. And he pulled himself over. He started to weep and weep and weep, but not weep from memory, not weep from pain, but weep from consciousness. And he said it was like I was talking to God, and it was like, boy, I missed you, old friend. It's been a long, long time. And at that moment, he stayed, and he was in absolute bliss. So remember, after the tears, absolute bliss. bliss beyond the description of normal words. But this is the human mind now. Watch the next part. You want sort of validation for that experience. Am I going crazy? Am I losing my mind? So who else to call? Call a man of God. So we called the chaplain, the base chaplain. And it just so happens the base chaplain was on the Highway 2 coming back to Miami on US 1. So we have mile markers down there. And so we say, well, I'll meet you at mile, what are you? I'm at 95. Oh, I'm at 107. Let's meet at 110. And sure enough, they did. And as he proceeded, which is typical to tell him the story, the man of God, of course, became to feel uncomfortable. Because why? He never had that experience. I'm the authority. You're not the authority. And then the ego says, well, why is God speaking to you and not to me? What am I doing wrong? All those go through the head.
Sure.
And the chaplain said, and he asked him, did you ever have experience that? He said, maybe something when I was young. But obviously he didn't, because you would know. There's no going back, right? So it's like it is or didn't. But what will happen is then he talked to also friends, and friends, they don't have that experience.
Sure.
So when you tell somebody, oh, go in and be present and feel, they're like, what are you talking about? My whole life has been pain. My whole life has been medication. So the skill of unified therapist is compassion, patience, and then knowing that I don't care who you are, what has happened to you, it's just a matter of time.
What
But you have
stops
skill.
it though? What
So
stops someone's ability?
That's a great question. So the number one thing that stops a person's ability is a self-defense mechanism we all have built into ourselves, right? We all have it. So it's the same thing in the house. When there's too much current going through the wires, the fuse blows. Boom! The breakers go boom, and it stops it. We have that same thing, believe it or not, inside us. And so you have to train yourself, and you have to have a therapist to catch you the moment you do it. You do not know you're doing it until somebody points it out. And even if you do know you're doing it, then you need help. And it has to be done. That's the miracle, literally the miracle of the new types of work. But especially in unified therapy, because it's unified. It doesn't leave anybody out or any philosophy. It doesn't make itself as a separate methodology. It includes the whole bundle. And that's why it's hard to be unified therapist, because you have to know mental health, you have to know physical health, you have to know medicine, you have to know consciousness, you have to know all the stuff, and then you have to throw it all out and just say, okay, now what is the unified thing? Why does this work? Why does this work? How are they interconnected? You know, and so when you get that, then people will start connecting. But the number one reason is because it's too painful to feel. That's right. And so when they start to feel things that make them feel uncomfortable, and nobody gets out of this, everybody has to go through this, is that you check out, you dissociate. Dissociation was a familiar term in mental health, but not somatic dissociation. People, Robert Scare and others, were brave enough to start to define those things, right? And others, and we really have gone in a whole new direction to say, what is the secret of somatic dissociation? Checking out of ourself, you know. I don't even like the term body, but it's checking out, and you have to have somebody there. Literally, you have to hold their hand and walk them through. It's important because some people can do baby steps, some people do a little bit more, but there should be there's no set amount that people can handle. It's what they can handle. And the good therapist, whether it's in even, an SC with Peter Levine or Pat Ogden, they know how to read the person, they know what they can handle, and they try to give them a little bit more. But what we're saying is those are very valid things, but now we can boost the system to unbelievable levels because we know how to oscillate the autonomic nervous system in a completely different way. So a lot of the other systems are basically walking based, and we're basically running based. So let's say it's people walking through the marathon and people running. They're very different, right? And you're really supposed to run through the marathon to get it. So, and this is the difference. It's like, but you still go through some of the same sensations walking. It's just when you're running, the health, the strength, the endurance in the body is pushed at a whole nother level.